The video was grainy, shot on a phone from 30 feet away, but the audio was clear enough to make the courtroom flinch. The sharp slap of hand on cheek echoed inside Judge Frank Caprio's chamber like a thunderclap. On the screen, a young woman in designer clothing leaned over a man in a wheelchair. The man's Marine Corps cap, soft, faded from years of wear, tumbled from his head and skidded across wet pavement. She kicked it. The single word she spoke on the recording cut deeper than the blow. Pathetic. He did not strike back. He sat with his hand pressed to his cheek, watching the cap roll into a puddle. Judge Caprio lifted a hand and froze the frame. Silence pressed into the room. 10:30 a.m., November 8, 2019 Providence Municipal Court Case, number 2019 CR 4521. A police chief's daughter had just called a decorated Marine pathetic. She had no idea what she'd unleashed. "Miss Mercer, is that you in this video?" Judge Caprio asked, voice steady. Leila Mercer, 24, composed, expensive jewelry glinting, lifted her chin. "He grabbed me first," she said. "I was defending myself." "We'll get to that," the judge replied. "First, do you know who the man is that you struck?" Leila blinked. "Some homeless-looking guy who was blocking my parking spot. In the front row, a man sat in a wheelchair. His legs ended below the knee. His hands, calloused from work, steady, rested on the wheels. He wore a plain flannel shirt and a jacket stitched with unit patches. A purple heart pin shone on his lapel. Beside him sat a large service dog in a vest with a patch that read, Ranger. His name was Thomas Reed, Tom to friends. Sergeant First Class Reed to those who served beside him in Afghanistan." He didn't look at Leila. His gaze drifted past the courtroom windows to the gray November sky, to something only he seemed able to see. On the bench beside him lay a bouquet of pink roses, petals browning at the edges. They had been in his car the day of the incident. They never reached their destination. At the back of the gallery, away from the family section, Chief Daniel Mercer sat alone. No uniform, no badge visible. He'd arrived early and chosen an empty row. He hadn't announced himself. He didn't want anyone to stand with him. The court clerk, Patricia Sullivan, opened the file. State of Rhode Island v. Leila Ann Mercer. Charges: simple assault, harassment, disorderly conduct, and a claim under the Americans with Disabilities Act for harassment of a disabled person. Leila's defense attorney, Henry Dalton, rose. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "my client maintains she acted in self-defense. Mr. Reed grabbed her wrist. She reacted instinctively. We moved to dismiss." "We'll hear the evidence first, Mr. Dalton," Judge Caprio said. He glanced at the defense. "I note counsel's representations, but while you may know who the defendant's father is, Mr. Dalton, it will play no part in my ruling." Leila leaned toward her lawyer and murmured loud enough for the first row to hear, "This is ridiculous. Daddy said he'd take care of it." A clerk placed a document on the desk, a handwritten statement from Chief Daniel Mercer. "I request that my daughter receive no special consideration in this matter," it read. "She will face the same justice as any citizen. I will not intervene." Chief Mercer's jaw tightened. Leila had no idea he sat only 3 rows behind her. She thought her father would be making calls, smoothing things over. She was wrong. "Miss Mercer, tell the court your version of events, please." Leila straightened, practiced confidence returning. "I was on my way to brunch with friends. I was late. I saw an open handicap spot near the restaurant. I asked the man to move and he became hostile. He raised his hand. I thought he would hit me, so I defended myself." "You struck him across the face, Miss Mercer," Judge Caprio said. "You pushed him." "I pushed him away," she insisted. "Self-defense." Thomas Reed closed his eyes. Ranger rested his head on Tom's knee. The clock read 10:42 a.m. Then the judge asked a question that made Tom's hand tighten. "You claim the spot wasn't being used. What about the flowers?" the judge asked. Leila's face registered confusion. "What flowers?" A large photograph appeared on the courtroom monitor, a soggy bouquet of pink roses on asphalt. "Evidence inventory, item 7. The responding officer's notes were read into the record. The flowers were for the victim's daughter's grave. He visits every Saturday. The prosecution called Aaron Patel to the stand, a software engineer in his 40s who'd been parked 2 spaces away. Calm, methodical, his testimony landed with measured force. "I saw Mr. Reed loading flowers into his car," Aaron said. "Pink roses. He moved slowly. He doesn't have legs below the knee. A white BMW pulled up behind. The driver started honking. The woman got out and began yelling. She said, 'Move your chair, I need this spot.' When Mr. Reed tried to explain, she called him a—" Aaron paused, searching for the word, then let it hang. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Deputy Thomas McKenna, his son deployed in Afghanistan, clenched his fists. "What happened next?" the judge asked. "He tried to wheel away," Aaron said. She grabbed the rear handles of his wheelchair and jerked it back. He raised his arm, not to strike, just to steady himself, and she slapped him across the face. Hard. She called him pathetic, kicked his cap, and walked back to her car. He didn't retaliate. Leila suddenly looked pale. "He's lying," she said. "We have the video, Miss Mercer," the judge said. "Would you like it replayed?" She said nothing. Assistant District Attorney Marissa Cole stepped forward. "Your Honor, we'd like to play the entire 43-second video." The screen flickered. The footage was shaky but clear enough. Tom Reed in his wheelchair, one hand on the wheel, trying to move. Leila standing in the way, voice sharp. "Where do you think you're going?" she'd said in the recording. "I'm talking to you." Tom's response was soft, tired. "Ma'am, I'm trying to leave. Please don't." "People like you think you can just take up space wherever you want," Leila snapped. "I don't care about your plates, I care that you're in my way." She seized the wheelchair's handle. He raised an arm. She slapped him. His head snapped. The cap fell. She kicked it into the puddle and spat, pathetic, as she returned to her BMW and checked her reflection in the window before driving off. Tom sat motionless in the frame, then slowly reached for his cap, bringing it to his chest as if it were a relic. The video ended. Evidence Photo 4 displayed the Marine cap on wet asphalt with visible scuff and a muddy shoe print near it. The courtroom remained still. In the back row, Chief Mercer bowed his head. Tears ran down the face of a man who'd commanded a police force for 12 years. Judge Caprio turned to Leila. "Self-defense?" he asked. She had no answer. "I think the court needs the context of who Mr. Reed is," Judge Caprio said. He opened a file and read. "Thomas Reed, born 1978, Providence. Enlisted in the United States Marine Corps at 18. To tour in Afghanistan, 2008-2009 and 2010-2011. On March 14, 2011, his convoy struck an IED outside Kandahar. 2 Marines were killed. Reed survived, but both legs were amputated below the knee. Citation: Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart recipient. During the explosion, he provided suppressive fire for 11 minutes while wounded, enabling evacuation of 3 wounded Marines. The room held its breath. Tom returned home after medical discharge and worked part-time at a neighborhood hardware store. He volunteered at the VA hospital, teaching woodworking to other disabled veterans. He kept to himself. He asked for nothing. And on October 26, he was slapped in a parking lot by a woman who called him and pathetic. Leila stared at him, taking in the patches on the jacket, the Purple Heart pin, the empty space beneath his knees. "I didn't know," she said, the words small and raw. "Would it have mattered if I'd known?" Judge Caprio looked at her, not with anger but with a stern compassion that made the room lean in. "That is precisely the problem, Miss Mercer," he said. "You didn't know because you didn't look. You saw a man in a wheelchair and dismissed him as an obstacle. His service didn't register. His dignity didn't matter. You saw only an inconvenience." A clerk passed the video transcript to the court again. A text message from Leila to a friend on the day of the incident flashed into the record. "Some homeless guy in a wheelchair ruined my morning. Had to put him in his place. Lol." For the first time, Leila truly looked at Thomas Reed. She saw the deep-set eyes, the scars, the dog at his side, the bouquet still damp. The realization knocked the air from her lungs. "Those roses were for his daughter," she whispered. "He visits her grave every week." Tom Reed had not spoken yet for the court. He wheeled himself slowly to the front. Ranger remained close, obedient. Tom faced Judge Caprio, but he did not look at Leela. "Why were you there that day, Mr. Reed?" the judge asked. Tom's voice was quiet but steady. "I was visiting my daughter, Your Honor. Her name was Claire. She's buried at St. Michael's Cemetery right near the parking lot. I go every Saturday. I bring her pink roses." There was a soft intake of breath from the gallery. "She was 6 when she died," Tom said. "Leukemia. I was deployed when she got sick. I tried to get back. The Red Cross tried, my unit tried, it happened too fast. I never got to say goodbye. I come every Saturday. I tell her about my week. I tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there." He looked down at Ranger, then out past the window to the sliver of cemetery visible from the courtroom. "On October 26th, I was loading her roses into the car. I was going around to the cemetery entrance because it's easier than wheeling over the grass. Then the woman in the white BMW started honking and cursing. She grabbed my chair. I lost balance. I raised my arm to steady myself. She hit me. My cap fell into a puddle. I missed my Saturday. Visiting hours ended before the officers could finish taking statements. There was a medical assessment on the file. Bruising to the left cheek. A reported increase in PTSD symptoms, nightmares, recommended counseling. But what hurt Tom more than bruises, he said softly, was that he'd missed time with his daughter because someone else wanted a parking space. Ranger put his head against Tom's lap. Half the courtroom had tears on their faces. "Your Honor," Chief Daniel Mercer said, standing slowly from the back, "may I address the court?" There was a collective intake of breath. Leela's face went pale. Chief Mercer walked forward with a weight in his steps. He put his badge down on the clerk's desk and faced everyone as simply a man, a father and a veteran, not the chief who could move tides. "I served 2 tours in Vietnam," he said, 1969 to 1971, 101st Airborne. His voice shook. "I know what it costs. I know what these medals mean. My daughter called you as she struck you. She kicked your hat in the mud. For that I am deeply sorry, not as a police chief but as a man and as someone who served." Tom looked at him. "You served in Vietnam?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Chief Mercer said. Tom's eyes softened. "Welcome home, Chief." The chief's shoulders trembled. "I have spent 40 years protecting this city," he said. "But I hid my failures as a parent under that shield too often. I took the easy way out. I fixed things for her because I could. I helped her avoid consequences. That ends now. I'm not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I want the opposite. She needs to learn." Leela cried out, "Daddy, why are you doing this? Why won't you help me?" "Because helping you all your life made you believe the rules didn't apply," he said. "That ends now." Judge Caprio removed his glasses and regarded the defendant. "I'm not here to brand you a monster, Miss Mercer," he said slowly. "I believe you were raised in a world that never asked you to reckon with other people's pain. But the law exists not only to punish, sometimes more importantly, it exists to teach. Blindness can be cured, but only if the patient wants to see." Leela's body convulsed. Her bravado dissolved into something that might have been awakening. Judge Caprio stood, the weight of 4 decades on the bench visible in the set of his shoulders. "Miss Mercer, I find you guilty of simple assault, harassment, and disorderly conduct. I'm dismissing the Ada charge for reasons of judicial economy, not because it did not occur. The following is your sentence." He paused, ensuring every eye was on him. "First, 18 months probation. Any violation, any sign you have not learned, and you will serve 90 days in jail. Second, a fine of $2,500 payable directly to the Rhode Island Disabled Veterans Fund. You will write the check yourself and see where the money goes. Third, 300 hours of community service, not at a charity of your choosing, but at the Providence VA Hospital in the Physical Rehabilitation Ward. You will work with veterans learning to walk again, to live again. You will see what sacrifice looks like. Fourth, a 40-hour educational course on military service and the challenges disabled veterans face. You will pass a written examination. Fifth, a 5,000-word research paper on disabled veterans' reintegration into civilian life. Mr. Reed will have the right to review and require revisions until he accepts it. Sixth, you will visit St. Michael's Cemetery with Mr. Reed once. You will stand at his daughter's gravesite and place flowers there. You will understand what you interrupted. Finally, you and your father will attend 6 sessions of family counseling together. You did not become this overnight. He did not fail you overnight. There is work for both of you to do. Return to my court in 90 days with a written apology for Mr. Reed. He may accept or reject it. He set down the file. This sentence is not designed to humiliate you, Judge Caprio said. It is designed to teach you not to be blind. Leela's breath came shallow. She was trembling. You understand? The judge asked. She nodded, unable to speak. 90 days later, Leela returned. She wore sensible shoes rather than stilettos. Her hair was pulled back plainly. She looked smaller and somehow straighter. The hardness was gone. In its place was a new, uncertain humility. Tom Reed sat in the front row. Chief Mercer was there too. A small group of veterans had come from the VA to watch. Miss Mercer, Judge Caprio said, I've received reports from the VA hospital. Tell the court about your time there. Leela's voice shook at first. The first week I thought it was punishment and I hated every minute. But then I met James, 23, lost an arm and most of his vision to an IED in Iraq. He was trying to tie his shoe using only one hand and a hook. He tried for an hour. He didn't complain. He practiced. I watched and I thought about what I did. She swallowed. I wrote the paper. Mr. Reed read it. He sent it back with pages of notes, things I'd gotten wrong. I rewrote it. I learned more by rewriting it than I had in years. Progress notes from the VA were read. Leela had done more than the required hours. She had asked for additional training in physical therapy assistance. Staff observed she had developed genuine rapport with veteran patients. One young veteran, James Morrison, said she'd become like a sister to him. Leela had kept her appointment at St. Michael's. He drove, she said, voice breaking. Mr. Reed drove. We stood at Claire's grave. He told me stories about her, how she loved pink, how she used to press her small hands to his cheeks when he was sad. He let me put the flowers down. For the first time, I understood what I had taken from him. It wasn't a space in a parking lot. It was time with his daughter, a moment he could never get back. She turned to Tom. I am so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'm truly sorry. Tom considered her. He wheeled forward and took the folded, handwritten apology she presented. He didn't open it there. I'll read it at Claire's grave next Saturday, he said. I think she'd like to hear it. Leela sobbed openly, but now the tears were not performance. They were not a shield. They were a weight lifted. Chief Mercer stood. Your Honor, he said, my daughter and I have begun counseling. I have seen how I failed her. I protected her because it was easier than parenting. That stops today. I have learned things about myself I did not want to face. He turned to Tom. If you would accept, my family would be honored to host you for dinner, veteran to veteran. Tom looked at him for a moment and then nodded. I'll bring the burgers. You provide the grill. A small laugh, the first in the courtroom that day, rippled through the room. Final case note, 2019 CR 4521. Defendant completed 347 hours community service, 47 over the minimum. The 5,000-word paper was accepted on the 3rd revision. Cemetery visit completed November 2, 2019. Apology letter accepted by victim. Case closed with judicial commendation for genuine rehabilitation. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel one last time. Miss Mercer, he said softly, this case is closed. You have completed more than what I asked. He paused, looked at Tom, then at Leela. Thomas Reed could have demanded the maximum penalty. He could have asked for imprisonment. Instead, he offered you grace. That takes courage. That is heroism. Don't waste it. I won't, Your Honor, Leela whispered. The gavel came down. Outside the courtroom, Leela and her father would begin the long work of rebuilding trust. Tom would return to his routine, woodworking at the VA, Saturday visits to the cemetery, quiet afternoons with Ranger at his side. He had lost his legs for his country, his daughter for too long a stretch of time, and nearly his dignity that day in the parking lot. But he kept something more precious, a capacity for forgiveness that few could match. When the hearing ended, people filed out slowly. Conversation hummed in small clusters about accountability, about compassion, about what real justice could look like when it repaired rather than merely punished. A pink rose lay on a windowsill, catching a slant of November light. It reminded those who saw it what the case had been about. Not a spot on a pavement, but a father's small ritual of love. Thomas Reed wheeled out into the cool air with Ranger beside him. Leela watched him go. She had done her time, but more importantly, she had seen. And seeing, she had finally begun to change. Case closed.